And we're live. Hello, friends. This is KCD Office Hours, December 16th, 2022. And I'm excited to answer any questions. And there are some questions in the Discord that we'll get to. And then after that, once those questions are gone, then we're all done. But if you want to join the Zoom, then you can do that. Let me share my screen so I don't forget to do that. If you've never been to Office Hours before, it's kind of fun. I just help people out each week. Not going to be doing next week probably because the holidays and things, because I think next week is not Christmas Eve, but Christmas Eve. Yeah, probably won't be doing Office Hours next week. I think I'll do the week after, maybe. We'll see. I'm not sure exactly what my work schedule is going to be like the next couple of weeks. So we shall see. So anyway, with all that in mind, I see that Nick has joined the Zoom. Are you just joining to hang out, or did you have a specific question? And that's fine. You can also stay muted and just hang out. That's cool too. Feel free to interrupt me. So I give priority to people who are in the Zoom call. So if you want to ask a question, you can join the Zoom. Link is in the Discord. Otherwise, I'm just going to go straight through Discord. So it looks like right here with Jerry. So let me say answering this now. Okay. Is the deferred promise needed to run again in the Epic React testing? Yeah, let's all pull that up here really quick. Testing React apps, and this will be the mocking exercise. And one regret that I have with the way I did Epic React workshops is that they're all just numbers. In the remix workshops that I made recently, I had the number, but I also had like a dash and then what it was about, and that made it really nice, much easier to find things. So anyway, this is they didn't say the specific exercise, so we gotta find out. I'll look at the final version too. Let's just grab a couple of these. Mocking HTTP requests, mocking browser APIs. I think that's the one. Yeah. Okay, so we have this deferred function, and I'll bump this up so we all can see that a little better. And the way that we, the reason that we have this deferred function is so that we can mock the implementation of the get current position. We can render the location. So this promise is still hanging. And so we don't call the callback right away when get current position is called, which is going to be get current position is called when you render location in a use effect. And we don't want to immediately resolve it because we want to make this assertion that there's a loading state there. And then after that, we want to resolve the promise so we can make sure that the loading is not there. And I believe, let's just read the question, but I believe I know what the question is. If I'm not wrong, I think the promise would run when location is rendered in the code, but just not resolve or reject yet, since there's no implementation for both of these two actions in the deferred promise function. That's actually what we want in this example. This deferred promise is just dangling there with the status kind of unfulfilled or something, or waiting for resolve or rejected. Yeah, we call it pending. That's what it is. My question is, if the promise is running already when the location gets rendered, do we still need a wait promise after resolving it? Actually, if I remove a wait promise, the test can still pass. I also screen debug the output before and after the snippet above, and also show loading before the fake position after. So yeah, it looks like the await promise is redundant. Yes. It's also a little funny discovery last Thursday, December 8th, when I followed the video tutorial mock geolocation. The code could still give out the position when resolve and await promise were not wrapped in act, as the tutorial showed, but after today, they will give this error. Yeah, if screen debug, the output is await promise, it will show loading as the output. Apparently, the resolve didn't run. First, I thought probably something wrong related to my machine environment setup and changed another laptop to try, but the result is just the same. Did React testing library update something past couple days? So the answer to that last question is maybe, but that's not the reason why you had this problem. So the await promise is necessary because of the way that the code flows here. So let's walk through it together and hopefully answer your question and explain why you're seeing this seemingly unexpected behavior. So we call deferred. That immediately creates a new promise, and this callback is immediately going to be called, and that's why we can return these two objects. And also this workshop, there's a branch called next that has all of this implemented in TypeScript, so you can take a look at how you would implement something like this in TypeScript, because it's a little funny when you're doing stuff like this. But in any case, we have a promise that's pending, and we have a mechanism for resolving and rejecting it. So you render location, it calls this window navigator geolocation get current position inside of a use effect, which is going to run before the next line of code runs, because render is wrapped in act, and so it flushes all of the effects. So this is getting called when we call render, and so then it is called with this callback. And we could just call the callback, but that would instantly resolve that, trigger another re-render, and so we'd never be able to see this loading state. So that's why we have the deferred in the first place, is so that we can say, hey, I want to do something, or I want to be able to call this callback on demand. And so we're going to call it when this promise resolves. And since we get to control when that is, we effectively get to control when the callback is called. Now, you could do this differently, where instead of doing the deferred, you could make a variable called callback or something, and then assign this callback to that, and then call this callback inside of here. And that would also work. But I think deferred is actually a pretty useful utility used elsewhere. So it's worthwhile to learn at least. I would not reject a PR that did it the other way, though, so I don't feel super strongly about that. But anyway, this is the way that it is. So we create a promise, render, it will attach a then to that promise, and then we verify that the loading state is there because the promise is still unresolved, and so the callback has not been called yet. And then we trigger a resolve. Now, when you call resolve, that just says, hey, JavaScript, when you're ready, this promise is good to, call all of the then callbacks on it, like, proceed the promise chain. But that's going to happen on the next tick of the event loop. That's how that works. So as far as like what that means is, actually, you know what, a really good thing I just tweeted about recently, to talk about the event loop at JSConf something, JSConf event loop. That's probably enough. Yeah, by Philip Roberts. Now, I'm not sure which one of these, probably just yeah, this is what I tweeted the other day. So this will be quite helpful to you. But basically, so that's just saying, hey, stick this in the event queue to go ahead and proceed this promise chain. And so if let's pretend we don't await the promise. So imagine that's not there, and now we don't need this async function for act. All the act is doing is calling resolve. So what will happen in that case is you'll probably get an act warning, because or it's possible that you might not. It kind of depends on whether or the timing of things. So when this gets called is kind of dependent on things that you don't really get to control. It's just stuck on the event queue. There may be other things in line in the event queue that may make things take longer before proceeding. And I think actually, if you were to take a weight off of this and just make this act resolve, then this would fail, because that would all run synchronously before the next tick of the event loop could call this callback. But if you left the await and the async here, then that means that this function would resolve at some point in the future on the event as part of the event queue, and it's possible that it would resolve after this callback is getting called. So that's probably what you experienced, is you just took this out, but you left this as async. And so now it's on the event queue, and you don't really get to control the order of things in the event queue with any degree of certainty, especially for something like this. So so that's probably why you experienced that, is because things are just getting added to the event queue. And in some cases you got lucky and this callback was called before this act thing finished resolving. But by adding the await promise here, we ensure that this will not get resolved until the promise chain has at least been continued. Now, this promise chain could actually have a bunch of other things on it, and those things will not necessarily be called when before this would be all finished. And so you'd need to have some mechanism that says, wait for the last thing in the promise chain to be resolved, which I'm sure that would be possible, but it would probably change this a little bit. Just trying to think of how I would do that. I can't, yeah, I'm going to leave that as an exercise for the viewer, but having this await promise is sufficient for what we're trying to do, because it ensures that this act does not resolve, and it doesn't allow the JavaScript engine to proceed until the next tick of the event loop, which will happen after this callback, because we're scheduling the resolve first. So hopefully that answers your question. So we do need to have this await promise, even though sometimes it sort of works. So great. I see that Alyssa is here, and I see your question is actually next. So Alyssa, do you want me to just read this, or do you want to just tell me the question?
Yeah, you can probably read it really quick, and then I can kind of
provide
context. That's helpful. Yeah, I kind of.
Okay, cool. So you visually view React component tree. Does anyone know of libraries or apps that can be used to traverse through a list of components? The project I work on has a lot of components that I'd love to create a visual view the app's component tree, similar to how the React, that's what I was going to say. Well, there's the React developer tools. So similar to the React developer tools does it, but it's more aesthetically pleasing format. Well, I'm not going to say that you said that to Brian Vaughn, who made the React developer tools. I've come across low-level libraries like React DocGen, no longer maintain React Site. I've heard of React DocGen, but not React Site. Which attempt to do similar things, but haven't been able to find something that fits exactly what I'm looking for. This is a far-fetched idea, but I'm curious if anyone knows of apps that do this, recommend some libraries.
No shade against the developer tools. They're fine. It's just sometimes you want more like almost like a node connection. I'm just curious if there's just a different view of it.
Sure, yeah. Do you have a specific use case, or is this just kind of for fun?
Well, have you seen? Oh gosh, I think it's called Jason Crack or something. It's like a third-party library. I can share a link to it, but it kind of has like these nodes and then these little things that kind of connect to it. Let me provide a link, but it's just kind of something like that. I use dev tools all the time. It's just sometimes I'm like I would like a quick, if I'm traversing through a project or something, just like a quick way to view okay, these components all connect.
And you want to do that statically, without running the app.
Exactly, and that's kind of why I'm saying something an alternative to let me see if I can find an example.
Yeah.
I don't know if that exists or not, but let me share.
You mentioned researching creating AST with Babel parser and stuff, and that makes me think of what is it called? I did it in my AST's workshop.
Yeah, so, and I have a subscription to it, actually through work. So I saw that you had a course on it.
So AST graph, what was it? So I put it's this app that was actually just a charting library somebody built, like a company built, and they had as a demo for their charting library a thing that parses an AST and shows it as a graph. And so that's what is in this zip folder, because AST visualizer, AST visualizer. I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for. I'm not going to be able to find it.
It's thinking I don't know, I haven't seen something like it existing in different formats, but I was like, that might be a fun project. Yeah, kind of something like that, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe a fun thing to kind of just try and do. So
here, let's see this one.
This is not an urgent question, just more of
something kind of like this, where it just graphs out the usage and stuff.
Yeah, just I don't know. I was just kind of curious. Just more.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting one. Yeah, I doubt that anything like that exists currently. But yeah, something kind of interesting to build if you want to go really deep into something.
Yeah, I was just thinking okay, maybe ASTs might be a way to kind of go and try and figure out what's, because figuring out what's connected and not trying to grab things like style components and things of that, you have so many different things you have to kind of handle, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah, and it could get really complicated if you've got really dynamic stuff too.
For sure.
So yeah, good luck.
I guess
Sorry,
one more question, if I may, it's
Yeah.
more of a side thing, is that, are you still planning to attend the React Miami conference, actually?
I
think?
am. Yeah. I'm super stoked about that. I
Okay.
tweeted a while ago that I canceled 4 conferences. Yeah, that
Yeah,
might.
since I was like, oh no, I hope that wasn't one of those, but it looks like it was still on here. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm actually from Miami originally, and I've never been to a tech conference. And I was thinking, okay, I'd like to go to one, and that might be one to attend. And I haven't like officially purchased tickets or anything, but like I saw that I'm on your email list, and you're like, oh, I'd love to meet you, and I was like, that'd be great actually. If I don't know if the opportunity presents itself, it'd be great to try and maybe say hi in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. I'd love to meet you too. Yeah, I was really disappointed the conferences I had to cancel. We hadn't actually officially announced that I was coming yet, and so I felt like, now is just the best time, to say sorry I can't make it, because I'm just so heads down on Epic Web. But
Right.
yeah, everything that's on here I'm still going to. One of the conferences I canceled is actually another one in Miami, that I can recommend. Like they put together really good conferences. It's called InfoBip Shift.
Okay.
And normally they have conferences in Croatia, and they'd actually scheduled one in Nigeria that I was going to go to, and then they canceled that one because logistics were challenging. They're going to do it next year, I think. But yeah, they're planning on another one in Miami, that I was going to go to. That's in is that May? I think that's in May. So anyway, yeah, I'd love to meet you in Miami. That'd be sweet.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, sweet. Okay, Marco, or actually Daniel, I see that you're in here. Did you have a quick question, Daniel? Or it doesn't have to be quick. It can be long too.
Hey.
I don't mind.
Yeah, I did have a couple things. They're simple, but I don't know if they'll be quick.
Okay.
So yeah, I just joined a new company on a couple months ago, and they're much more thorough with their testing, which was a goal of mine too. I don't consider myself very good at it, but some just stuff that's come up in some PR reviews. There was a lot of like when a view loaded, they would await an API call as a way of just like making sure the page was loaded. And so instead, when I wrote a test, I awaited like the spinner, like the loader, thinking like, think like a user, they're not watching the network tab, right?
Yeah.
So that just sparked a little conversation between some of us devs, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, you're right, Daniel. They're wrong. So
Okay.
the API call is,
all right, that was quick. Yeah. No, go ahead.
The API call is absolutely an implementation detail that the user doesn't know or care anything about, and could change without breaking the user's experience, right? Like you could change even the URL, and then the user experience doesn't change at all. And so yeah, 100%. The only thing that that could change. So like, let's say you go with, let's wait for the spinner. The only thing that could change about that, that would trigger a breakage of your test is if you decide, oh, we don't need the spinner anymore, which is a change in the user experience. And so therefore necessitates a change in the test anyway. So 100% you should be going with the spinner. The challenge here is sometimes you could have a user experience where a network request is being made, but there's no visual indication of that. And so maybe you've got like a thing that pops up to the user after the network request is finished, that may or may not pop up based on what the response for the network request is. And so maybe you're writing a test that says it does not pop up in these situations. That's a little tricky because you don't know how long that network request is going to take. And so like, I mean, you can mock it out and it shouldn't take very long, but it's just a little harder to write that kind of a test. And in that situation, maybe it's okay to say, well, the API was called, because you could say, well, it doesn't show up. That must mean that it's working. And if that's all you do, then somebody could go and break it so that the API is actually not called. And so, yeah, of course, it's not going to show up. So I guess like you can sidestep that by having another test that does have the pop-up show up. But still, in that case, maybe it's okay to say, yeah, the API was called. Also, I should suppose I should mention that anytime you're mocking anything, you want to make assertions that the mock was called correctly, in most cases. And this is probably a case where that applies. And so I would say, wait for the loading spinner, like for your case specifically, wait for the loading spinner. But also if you're mocking the HTTP call, which I'm guessing you are, then you want to assert that the HTTP call was made still. Because anytime you poke a hole in reality, you want to try and patch it up a little bit, and making assertions on those mocks can be quite helpful. So
would that be the same test?
I think, yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you have like a pretty natural other place where you're like, I'm just going to verify all the APIs are called correctly or something, then I wouldn't verify the API is being called in every single one of those tests. Just the important thing is that you have at least one test that verifies you're interacting with the mocks correctly. And if the other tests are doing the exact same thing, I don't think it's worthwhile making the same assertion. Sometimes it's not like that big of a deal, or maybe even you'll make a little utility that you just call, and it just happens to include some additional assertions that are maybe redundant, but like, I mean, it's not hurting anybody to include. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So to summarize, you're saying my instinct about trying to experience the page the way the user would be correct. And then if I'm going to assert something about the API, that would just kind of like be at the tail end of my test.
Yeah.
Sort of after the say user experience portion of it, or however
Yeah,
you say it.
I definitely, I wouldn't wait for the API.
Okay.
So yeah, you
Gotcha.
wait, you experience the app like the user does, and then you sprinkle in assertions to make sure that any mocks you're doing are doing things correctly. That's it.
And I'm not 100% clear on what you mean by that, to make sure that the mocks you're using are working correct, or you're interacting with them correctly. So yeah.
So let's talk about that for a little bit. Let's say that you have a let's ignore HTTP requests for a second. We're just mocking a function that is really expensive or something. Maybe you've got a page where you render a data table, and you're just trying to make sure that like something else on the page is working. The data table doesn't matter. Data table is really slow. Or actually, how about this? Data table is already really well tested. It's a third-party library you're using. And so you don't really control or care about some of the specifics of that. And it's on top of that, it's super, super slow. If it weren't slow and it was just fine, then I probably wouldn't bother mocking it. But let's say that it's really slow for certain cases. So you're going to mock it. For that type of case, if you, as soon as you mock it, you don't actually know that that it's going to render properly. You completely lose that ability to verify that it renders properly. This is just the trade-off that comes with mocking. So something that you can do to sort of patch up the hole. Now, a patch isn't as good as like not having a hole in the first place as far as being confident, but it's better than nothing. So what you can do to patch up that hole is to make sure you're at least passing it the right props that you are expecting it should receive. So maybe it's you've got a bunch of filters and sorts and stuff like that. So and then you pass those values as props. So you would just verify that this is going to be rendered, or it was called with these specific props. And so as far as like an HTTP request, you would just verify that this URL was called as a post with this body or whatever, or yeah, whatever the case may be. Now, an alternative way to kind of accomplish the same thing, rather than, well, actually, yeah, just probably the way that I would do it is, since you're not actually making the HTTP request, you don't know that you're making that request properly. So you could be missing a authentication header, or something that's really important to the API. And so I always mock HTTP requests with what is the MSW, mock service worker. It's fabulous. And you have these handlers that are called when those requests are made. And so inside of that handler, I would just make assertions that are all of the things that are important that the backend API that you're mocking would require. So like fail in the same situations where that other thing would fail. So you forgot your authorization header, or this param is wrong, or whatever it is. And so that way, even though your mock is blocking making the actual network call, when your test UI makes a call and it goes to the mock will throw the error. And so therefore your test doesn't have to do any assertions. The test code doesn't. It's the mock that's doing the assertions, and you've successfully patched up that hole.
So it's the test will still fail because the error was thrown, and the mock you've done in MSW is throwing those errors, even though it's not really a test in of itself, but it's going to affect all your tests. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. The exception to this would be if you are swallowing rejected promises. So like if you add a dot catch and then, a function that does nothing or whatever, a no op function, then an error thrown in your MSW handler would not surface or break anything in your test. And so there's a risk there for sure. But like, again, mocks you should try to have your mock resemble the real world experience as much as possible. And so if you had that situation where you're swallowing errors, then the production app would also swallow errors. And so maybe that's desirable, right? So I think that to avoid that mistake, I don't really see a way to avoid that mistake, honestly, other than having a test that says if the API errors, then we also see an error on the page, which is actually not a bad thing to test as well. Because lots of times you have a specific user experience you want to offer when there's an error. So, so that would handle that situation. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I had one more question along the same lines, as kind of following the user's experience. And that's about testing tables. So I wrote a little utility just to like get the text of the header of a column, and then I like got the index of that, and then made sure that the cell on whatever row, basically just getting that cell by the header column.
Yeah, that's great.
And I didn't hadn't found any utilities for that within the library, within the React testing library, and I kind of Googled a little bit, and eventually I found that someone had made one. So I looked it up. It was just it's testing library table queries is the npm package. Anyway, I just didn't know, since that's sort of not built into React testing library, if there was a reason for that, or if what you thought of that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think that will ever get built into testing library, but I could be wrong. I don't make all the decisions there. So it seems like a separate package is a great approach for that. And there's a reason why we allow custom queries, and we have like a specific API for making custom queries, and it's for stuff like that for sure. I could definitely be convinced that it has a place inside of testing library, but since I don't maintain testing library myself anymore, I will not work on that myself. But I would not be super opposed to including that. So if you want to champion something and see if the other maintainers would be interested in taking that on, then that sounds cool to me. But personally, I would be just satisfied with a little utility package, and just use that. But what you built, like the idea of like, get me row 30 of this, or get this cell by this header title. Whatever. Like
basically that. Search the headers by text and get the index of the one you find, and then call the rows and get the index.
That's perfect.
I ended up deleting it after I found that other package, but anyway, because it did like exactly the same thing. But I was mostly just like wanting to make sure that it wasn't more popular because it was like somehow a bad idea.
Yeah,
that was kind of more my question.
actually, Daniel, so Nick is one of the maintainers of testing library as well. And if you just want to put a
Yeah.
link in the Discord for that, that package, or if you have some other relevant links, that would
Yep,
be
I'll
helpful
put it in there right now.
for folks.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I had too.
All right,
Thank you.
super. All right, Marco, I see you have, I'm guessing you're the same Marco in here. Did you want me to just read through this, or did you want to ask it yourself?
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, Kent. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Likewise. Yeah. So that is exactly my question.
Okay. So as far as the Epic Web sale, Epic Web isn't available yet. Are you talking about Epic React?
No, Epic Web.
Okay. Yeah. So Epic Web is, I'm still working on it. What you see on epicweb.dev right now is all there is. So which is to say not much, mostly just a pitch for give me your email address because this is going to be amazing, and an
Yes.
articles page. So that's all that's there right now.
Yeah.
But I am very heads down on this, and
Yeah, see the streams.
yeah. So a lot of people oh yeah, I'm live right now, so that's why that went to that. but yeah, if you go to my live streams, you'll see I'm just like I have maybe 200 hours now worth of live streaming of working on Epic Web. So so there's that also. And then yeah, I'm thinking like about 6 months into next year, I'll have something on Epic Web that you can get a license to. But yeah, there will be a lot of free stuff on there too, so definitely stay tuned.
Awesome. And that's it's like it's totally remix. So it'll be
yeah, so it will be totally web, and so there will be a lot of stuff in there that has nothing to do with remix, but certainly plenty of stuff that does, and the app that we're building is a remix app.
Yeah, because basically like I spent about it was close to like a month of rent for me, which was a lot. I invested that into Epic React, and then because my work wasn't giving me the opportunity to, like the senior devs were doing the React stuff, and I said, don't cut me out. I know I can do it. But they didn't give me a shot. So then I found this guy called Kent, and he did give me a shot. And 2 months later, I'm the sole React developer at my own, at a different job now, and I'm earning much better money. So it's like
dude, good for you.
10 to 1 return first month.
That's fantastic, dude. I'm really grateful that you trusted me with it is not a cheap course, so thank you for trusting me, and I'm glad that it worked out well for you.
So thanks are all mine. And I hope to do the same with Epic Web, because I'd like to take on private clients.
Oh yeah. That Epic Web is very well suited for that type of goal for sure. So that's great. I hope that I can help, and I'll try to get it done as quickly as I can. Cool. Okay, so let's look at your second question. Handling API requests that return JSON in React and TypeScript. Currently, I'm making the request in useEffect and storing JSON in a state. It renders my UI. It feels wrong and noobish. So that is, there are a lot of thoughts on this. So what I would suggest is if you are using React Router, and on the latest version of React Router, then React Router 6.4 added loaders and actions, and I would start using those to handle making network requests. And then if you needed to add some caching abilities in there, then React Query is really good for that. And then if you can use Remix, and then you wouldn't need React Query either. You just, everything can be all with the Remix APIs for making JSON or HTTP requests and anything asynchronous. It's fantastic. But yeah, certainly not everybody can migrate over to Remix instantly. So let's assume that for some reason you can't use the loader and action API from React Router, you can't migrate to Remix. then do look into React Query because it's phenomenal for making these kinds of requests. And if for some reason you can't do that either, then Epic React, I create a use async hook as you're going through that. It's in the advanced hooks workshop, I think. And you could use that use async hook, and that would be pretty good. But pretty much if you were making a network request inside of use effect, then you definitely have to do, if there's, if we're loading, then we got to show some loading state. So you're not going to be able to avoid that. It is not the best user experience. And so that's why I suggest Remix, but it is, yeah, it's about as good as you can get. React Router can make it a lot better by moving your data loading to the routes, so that you can start making those requests before rendering, which should make that perform a lot better too. So does that answer your question?
That's exactly what I wanted to hear, actually, because I have limitations with regards to what's in the project currently. So I can't go, installing like Remix.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially with the this if else technique, it feels wrong. But if it's unavoidable, that's how it has to be.
Yeah, it is. And it's, like I said, not the best user experience, but sometimes it's the best you can offer with your current way that things are structured. So I'll just bring this up here really quick. So it's in the utils, and actually if you switch to the next branch, this will not exist because it's not JS anymore, it's .ts. It's in here somewhere. Oh, TSX, good grief. So yeah, so here's the TypeScript version of the use async hook. And if we go into one of the exercises, or here, let's go into the final, probably this one or this one, use async. No, it's going to be this one, or here, probably.
Yeah, I do actually keep Epic React open in a tab as I'm working. And I refer back
nice.
to it.
Good reference.
Because, it's the best. It's the best. And I guess, yeah, it would help a lot with the exercise names, because
yes. Yeah.
I've opened up the Pokemon exercise 500 times, and I keep thinking, no, it's somewhere else.
Yeah. I definitely feeling that pain myself even right now. So this is where I'm using that. So we're doing the request in use effect, and then we have just a switch on the status. You could do a switch, or you could do an if. But yeah, this is actually, if I were building something this way today, this is how I would do it. So I just switch on the status, and then return different things based on the current state, and that's as good as you can do if you're making the request inside of a component.
That's great. I mean, yeah, it's
another thing you might consider. Another idea here is React Suspense. So the React Suspense workshop is based on experimental features in React. So this is using Suspense before it was released. So some of the APIs, I think most of them are exactly the same, but some of the APIs may be a little different. So just be aware of that. But you could enhance use async to utilize Suspense, and I think I might actually do that. Let me see. No, so we have this create resource function. Should not be copy pasted. It's experimental. Forget about that. Like, this is probably just fine. So you could try something like this. Just make sure that if you haven't already gone through the workshop, make sure that you do, because it's very easy to end up in a waterfall thing where first you have make this, like you're rendering, you make this request and that's finished, and now you're going to make this request when you could have made both of those in parallel. And so in the exercises, I demonstrate how to make those start those requests early, as early as possible. And I think it's probably in the 7th one here. Yeah, the last exercise is pretty crazy with the suspense list, but the important bit is that we create the resource as soon as we're able to create the resource and not later. So anyway, hopefully that is helpful too.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kent. And God bless.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. Okay, Amir, hello. Recovery is coming. So yeah, if you didn't notice, I do still have this bandage on. I do not like the bandage. I want to rip it off. But my family keeps telling me to stop picking at it because it's not good. I tried actually like 2 days after the surgery, I tried pulling it off and it hurt like crazy. So that was a mistake. And so, yeah, they keep telling me, stop picking at it. It's going to hurt again. But I have a meeting with the doctor on Monday and hopefully I can get that thing off. I want to see what it looks like, but like now I can lift my arm and I don't feel the plate when I do that. And that is amazing. So it still kind of hurts when I do that though. Anyway, yes, recovering smoothly. I'm taking the family up skiing tomorrow and I will not be bringing my own skis or snowboard. As amazing as it would be because it's been snowing like crazy this week. But yeah, it's just too early for me to take a fall. That would just be bad. I've got 9 holes from the screws in my collarbone. I'm very breakable right now. So not going to do that. Anyway, thank you for the well wishes. Okay, using the Grunge stack, and I experienced several performance problems only in local dev. Lambda times out due to greater than 5 seconds. The deployed app is nice and swift though. Well, that's good, at least. Talked to folks over at Arc Discord, and they told me my server node modules are too big for the Lambda. I guess the solution is multiple Lambdas, but remix examples with Arc and Grunge stack. I'll use a single Lambda to catch all to catch all. Do you perhaps know why? Is there a specific limitation with using multiple Lambdas? Am I supposed to create a full app with the Grunge stack? I'm quite new to the service world, so my question makes sense. It does make sense, Amir. And I'm not sure why you're experiencing these limitations locally, but I'm pretty sure Arc is probably they're probably doing all sorts of things to try and simulate the same kind of environment, which includes these limitations even during local development. So the reason that I'm guessing the reason it's working in production is because that's a built version of everything, and so it's going to be compiled and compressed and all that stuff. Whereas locally, you've got the dev mode, and it's not going to be minified and all of that stuff, and so that's why you're experiencing this. But if your app grows, then eventually it could get too big for a single Lambda. We have, as far as Remix is concerned, I expected this to be a problem eventually. I know the Vercel folks have put a lot of work into every API route is its own Lambda. Remix is a little unique in this way because of nested routing. So it's basically, there are just so many permutations of different combinations of code that would be needed to be executed for each individual request, that it would be like if you hit your home page, you need the root loader, you need the index route, and then all of the code that those two things depend on. And then on the Teams page, you still need the root loader, and then you need the Teams loader and stuff. And so there are just a lot of different permutations. If you hit the Teams / whatever page, then now you need the root loader, the Teams loader, and the / whatever page. And so there's probably some magic way to split things up in a reasonable way. That this will get even more complicated if we end up supporting the before loader middleware idea, which will probably happen. And so, yeah, this will require a lot of compiler work to make that happen, to split it up into multiple Lambdas, which is, yeah, that is tricky. Yeah, what I do is I don't use serverless because as awesome as serverless is, and it is for a lot of use cases, it's fantastic. There are a lot of challenges with living in that kind of constrained environment. So I don't really have any solutions for you, I'm afraid. Yeah, during local development, maybe figure out if you can minify stuff. But if, like I said, eventually you're going to possibly hit that upper limit on what you can do with how much space you have in a Lambda. Another thing is try and figure out what is in your bundles and see if you can remove stuff that's really big. So yeah, sorry, I don't really have anything really helpful there. Yeah, it's too bad. Sorry. Okay, that is all the questions. So unless anybody else throws in a last minute question while I wrap this up, just going to say thank you for joining. And if you go to my schedule, my Kent live stream schedule, then you'll see that I do have things scheduled for next week, but I don't know, actually. I probably won't be streaming every day. I should probably delete those because that's my family's going to be home. Today's the last day of school for my kids. And so we're going to do stuff together and preparing for Christmas and everything. So stay sort of tuned. I will try to update my calendar with stuff, but a lot of loosey-goosey stuff going on in the next couple weeks. So I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, and thank you all. And also I should mention, I'm not planning on office hours next week either. Don't plan on that. So we'll see you in a couple weeks. Have a good Christmas. Bye.